Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back. Kellen here with Droid Life. So I've got in front of me the HTC 10. You guys know all about this. I think at this point, it was announced yesterday. We've written up the announcement, the specs, the $700 price tag, its carrier availability, which doesn't include AT&T at this time. But you guys haven't seen it yet in our hands, and we haven't sort of told you sort of that first impression or just sort of our general feel or overview or that sort of thing. So we're going to do that today. We're going to talk about the phone, get it ready for a full review shortly. Obviously, we want to spend quite a bit of time with this phone, and it is still new to us. But yeah, we have one in-house now, so let's do this. Let's talk HTC 10 first impressions. All right, so I think the first place to probably begin would be specs, right? We'll just run through those quickly to catch everyone up if you haven't been paying attention. So actually, let's go front side. We do have a 5.2-inch Quad HD display. So it's a Super LCD 5. So new LCD display for HTC. They used to use Super LCD 2s and 3s and 4. I think we had 4. Did we skip 4? Either way, the Super LCD has sort of been HTC's bread and butter in their flagship One devices for quite some time. And it is an LCD though, so unlike Samsung and even Nexus with the 6P, not AMOLED. So there's obviously benefits to either side. They've gone LCD, and look, we'll test it and play with it and see what we think down the road. But so far, it seems like a pretty solid display. It's about all I can say about that. In terms of the rest of the specs, you got Snapdragon 820 on the inside, so same processor that you've got in the G5, 64-bit, but it's quad core. That means we do have Qualcomm's Quick Charge 3.0 in here, which is also included in that USB Type-C port. So I kind of want to call it the flippy floppy port because you can just like throw in a USB cable either way and it sort of goes right in there. But so we do have Quick Charge 3.0. We also do then have a 3,000 milliamp hour battery, obviously embedded. This is an all metal sealed phone, so you're not going to open that up and swap batteries. 4 gig of RAM. 32 or 64 gigs of storage, but you can expand that with a micro SD slot up to about 2 terabytes is what HTC says. Same thing with LG, but good luck finding an actual 2 terabyte card anywhere. On the back here, so camera, we do have a 12 megapixel camera. Pretty sure it's the same exact camera that's in the Nexus 6P and Nexus 5X, but HTC is calling it their Ultra Pixel 2 camera. So, it makes a lot of sense. And this has been rumored that they were going to use this camera sensor for a while, but basically the idea is a continuation of the idea they had years ago when they first introduced the Ultra Pixel. And so at 12 megapixel resolution has always been bumped up from the 4 megapixel resolution of the previous Ultra Pixel, but still got bigger micron pixels, more light, all of that stuff should be faster, better in low light, all that stuff, right? It also has optical image stabilization, so should just get better overall footage no matter what you're doing. We do have laser autofocus though now as well, and there is a dual LED flash. Continue talking cameras up on the front here. This sort of big looking front facing shooter is actually just 5 megapixels, but it's 1.34 micron pixels, so bigger pixels there again, right? And it does have optical image stabilization. So HTC is really talking about this being the first front camera with OIS. And I think they've even dubbed it Ultra Selfie or something like that. So look, people take lots of selfies. And in the review kit they gave us a selfie stick. I've never used a selfie stick and still don't even know how to use one, so that should be fun. But HTC always taking the selfies seriously. So in terms of sound, right, HTC's talked about boom sound for years. So speaker here and speaker down here on the bottom. So you do still have 2 speakers. They're not stereo though. One's basically a woofer, one's basically a tweeter. So you do have 2 speakers. It's just not exactly the same implementation as we saw before, but it is boom sound, and there's obviously high-res audio certification with the phone. Plug in headphones and you'll get pretty impressive sound no matter what headphones you toss in. They've also partnered with JBL to do the first USB Type-C headphones. And I actually used them at an event for HTC last night, and they sounded great. So I'm actually excited because, number one, I don't like headphone jacks on the top. So if I can plug in and utilize that USB Type-C port to give me basically a headphone jack on the bottom, I am all for that. In terms of the rest, I talked about the USB Type-C. It takes a nano SIM. It does have a fingerprint sensor, which you can see down here. It's pretty good. I mean, I can't say it's like bad or great or anything. I've used it, and It seems to be fairly fast, and it's that capacitive type where it's not actually a button that you click. You just set your finger on there and it works. Doubles as a home button, which you can see is flanked by 2 capacitive buttons for back and the app switcher. And yes, they are in the correct order like Google has shown. Samsung flips those, which we complain about every once in a while. So fingerprint sensor seems okay. I don't know that it's the best I've used, but it definitely seems to work quite well. Let's see. 3,000 milliamp hour battery, which I mentioned. You can get up to 50% charge in about 30 minutes with Qualcomm's Quick Charge 3.0. So speedy charge, gotta love that. And obviously we're seeing deals on USB Type-C chargers all over the place. So there's no excuse not to be able to pick a few of those up. And it is the future. So that's what we have there. In terms of colors, this is Glacier Silver. And then there's also a Carbon Gray, which is sort of a dark charcoal for the US. These are the only 2 colors we're getting in the US. We could see some special colors for Best Buy or something down the road, but that's sort of what we're getting at first. There's also a gold version and then a special red version that few are getting. For the most part, this is what we get. So $699 is the starting price on this if you buy it unlocked, and you can pre-order from HTC right now. Carriers, Verizon, Sprint, T-Mobile are going to carry it as well. We don't know pricing there or availability. If you pre-order this guy, it's going to show up around May or early May, sometime in May. But you can pre-order it now. There's some codes floating about that'll shave you $100 off, bring it down to about $599. I think most of us, I think it's safe to say that we think $700 for this is a bit much, and that $599 is a little bit better. That's not to say what HTC's done here isn't great and worth a steep price. It's just as a company that's looking for that first hit in a number of years, maybe pricing it at $700 isn't exactly the right idea. In terms of just design, in-hand feel, this is, I would say this is, if we could go back to the HTC One M8, which I thought was a really, really great feeling phone in hand. This one feels pretty great as well. Just in terms of design, you sort of have this front glass that's actually, this is going to be sort of hard to show you, but it does kind of have this rounded softness to it around the edge. So even though you have the metal sort of wrapping up and around, it's not really sharp. I mean, there's definitely a little bit of an edge there, but it's they've done a nice job at sort of making it curve into that metal a little bit. Just in terms of the overall design, right? You can't deny that this is an HTC phone. It looks like all of the last 1M phones, right? So M7, M8, M9, and then this is just the HTC 10. We've dropped the M there, but it looks like one of those phones. So with the One A9 that they released at the end of last year, we made a whole bunch of jokes about it being an iPhone clone because it was an iPhone clone. It was an unapologetic iPhone clone. This phone, I don't think it looks like an iPhone at all. I think it looks like an HTC One device, and I think it's a pretty sharp device. Obviously, it's got the sort of like double chamfering going on, and this is a big old chamfer. In some of the leaks and stuff, it looked kind of silly, I'm not gonna lie, but in person it's got a really nice shine to it. Depending on the angle, it just sort of gives off this little glimmer, and it's kind of nice looking. In terms of the colors though, silver, I actually wish our review unit was the darker sort of charcoal gray. It's really, really classy looking. Silver, look, this is the classic sort of 1M styling, right? The original 1M7 came in this color. So it makes sense that HTC would continue here, but just personally, the dark charcoal looks a little bit better. But this is a nice looking phone. It really is. If you're into that sort of all metal look, you're probably gonna love the look here. So and again, in person, it definitely looks much better, I think, than it has in some of the photos we've seen. Let's see if we jump into software. The software side of things, so HTC actually is doing some stuff that I think most of us would appreciate as Android enthusiasts. So other than the capacitive button situation, which I know we don't all love, look, we can get over that. I've been able to get over Samsung phones. I think we can get over it here too. So they've got a pretty clean version of Sense on top of Android. So it's got the vertical scroller that's paginated, which I really don't like. I wish they would let us just free flow scroll, and I don't believe there's a quick scroll over here that I can find. So it is what it is, and you can sort this alphabetically, or they have some custom or most recent, so you can tweak some of that stuff. They've sort of had that app drawer for a really long time. If we swipe down the notification area though and get into the quick toggles, you can see it looks a lot like stock Android. The notification experience is a lot like what Google's doing. This whole area is essentially a lot like what Google does. So they've really kept this about as simple as it gets. Now, if we dive into settings, They have rearranged these a little bit weird. I'm having some trouble finding things, but for the most part, it kind of just looks like stock Android, so you can't really be that upset. You can see here there's a boom sound toggle, so if you want to tweak some of that stuff. But overall, like it's a lot of the stuff you sort of expect to see, right? Let's jump into software information. So you can see there it's running Android 6.0.1, so the newest version of Android at the moment. And if we jump back, I did want to show you guys one thing though. So HTC used to do this thing where they would, when you went into battery usage and tried to look at what was being used, they used to hide the screen on time. They were the one manufacturer that for whatever reason used to do that. Well, they're not with this phone any longer, but they are separating, which I actually appreciate. They have app usage, and then down here they have system usage, and then you can see screen on time is actually there. So they aren't hiding that any longer. Actually, I don't know that they can. I think Google's changed some things to where they can't necessarily do that, but that's going on. For the most part, that's kind of it with Sense. You know, the recent looks the same. There is a clear all, though. Obviously, you can hit back. You know, this is what the folders look like, and you can name those. If we long press here, oops, not on that. If we long press here, maybe. How about here? Wow, I can't get to an empty space. How about we just pinch? There we go. So you do have this sort of home screen layout where you can, add panels, rearrange them, delete them. And yes, that is blink feed over there on the left. So if we swipe over, there is blink feed, and there's a few things you can customize, but overall it's not really that, I don't want to say it's not powerful. It's just you can't really do a lot with it. There's just some really limited stuff. You can see it does integrate with my Fitbit and Twitter and things like that, and Instagram. And then I have news showing up as well. Look, it's blink feed. You guys are pretty familiar with that. So that's sort of software. HTC's not doing anything crazy, which I think we all really appreciate. Samsung always kind of overdoes it. HTC's not overdoing it. They're just sort of giving it to you. Like, here's our basic version of our skin on top of Android, and they're giving you Google's apps instead of their own, so you don't have a bunch of duplicates of like calendar and calculator and all that stuff. You just get to use Google's calculator and Google's calendar. You're not using HTC's or getting double notifications and things like that. So they've done some things, again, that I think we all can really, really appreciate in here. And so finally then, about the camera, obviously you have not had a chance at all to do any testing here. Let's just bring in a subject for us. So this is the camera. Swipe out. You can get into Zoe's still, panoramas, pro modes, which have manual controls. There's video and hyperlapse and slow motion and selfie photos and selfie videos. And so you've got sort of all the stuff you would expect, right? If we jump into settings, there's just a few settings in here, like turning the grid on, using the volume buttons and things like that, and where you want to store your photos. To take a picture, though, you just tap and it focuses and you can shoot. I won't say that this has been the fastest camera I have ever used by any means, but so far it seems to take pretty decent photos. So if you guys aren't familiar, to launch it with the phone like this, you can swipe down on the screen twice and it launches, and then you can tap and take a photo. So it's fairly quick. I still don't think anyone has really topped what Samsung's done with the S7 and even last year's S6. Everyone has their own shortcut. LG's got the double tap on the volume down. Google has the double tap on, power button with the Nexus. And this is what HTC's doing, a double finger swipe. And that launches that, and you can take it. And you can see it's pretty quick right now. So definitely something we're going to test further. Overall, though, I like the phone. I think I really, really just appreciate the simplicity. So HTC, I guess if you want to compare it to another metal phone, the G5, it's brand new, right? The G5 it doesn't feel as premium as this by any means. And I know LG did their sort of modular thing, but HTC, they've been doing the all metal thing for a really long time. They know what they're doing here. If the design isn't to your liking, that's just like a personal preference, but you cannot deny the build here and how this thing was made and the finishing touches and things like that. And then I would say I also do just really appreciate, again, the simplicity to the software, where they're just not trying to do too much. They're not trying to add on multi-windows and all this crazy stuff and all these different modes and things. And it just works, and it's pretty simple. And I definitely appreciate that from HTC. So that's pretty much it, though. Way too long of a video on first impressions anyway. But you guys have been waiting, I think, for this, and so I didn't want to leave anything out. So anyways, we will have plenty more. There will be review up shortly. We obviously want to put this thing through its paces. If you guys have comments, questions, want us to test anything in particular, we can do that. Till then, we are Droid Life. Peace.